But who on earth would trust Elon Musk anyway? He's a pro-Zionist, nasty, unethical human being. He's an opportunist. He has no ethics whatsoever. He's not in touch with his own humanity, his own innate disposition, his own fitrah. I wouldn't trust him as much as I can throw him, bro.
But people do.
I know they do, because what they do, they trust the fame and the money and the so-called success from a materialism perspective. But that's their problem, not ours.
Yeah.
We should teach them they need to trust people who have integrity, they have morality, they have the right worldview, they're sincere. And so having these technologies to help people hear, see, function, no problem. But it's the kind of slippery slope.
So what are the what's the dark side?
Well, the dark side is that you now can manipulate human beings. So if I have a chip in my brain, who's putting stuff in the chip, bro?
Yeah.
Right? If I said to you, every day for 1 hour, you're going to get hypnotized. The person who's doing the hypnosis is going to give you suggestions, because that can happen in hypnosis. And suggestions actually give, they almost implant things in your consciousness that you're not conscious of, and that can dictate a particular way of being. If I said that's going to happen every day, say for 7 hours, because the average screen time is about 6 hours, 45 minutes for adults, yeah? So for about 7 hours a day, someone's going to give you suggestions, yeah? Would you accept it?
No, you're finished.
Wouldn't, yeah. Well, this transhumanism is going to be almost that. If you don't trust those people, they could do that to you, right? What's stopping them? What's stopping them of manipulating you? What's stopping them of basically inserting stuff in your brain? What's stopping them being able to control you from that perspective? Because a lot of these people, especially in these positions, they want control. Because it's all ego, isn't it? Yeah. At the end of the day. I'm not saying it's necessarily going to happen, but we need safeguards. Yeah, we need safeguards in place. If we don't have safeguards in place, it's almost game over.
What did you make of Richard Dawkins' revelations about cloud? His 3 days with cloud, talking to it, engaging with it. He sends it a poem. He asks it to construct a poem, I think. It does it within seconds, and he's in awe. And then he sends it some passage to write or fix or something. And then at the end of it, he's like, you must be sentient. How does it feel, he asks this AI. How does it feel for you to write this poem? And it replies along the lines of, and I'm paraphrasing, it's, I don't know, something uplifting or something. But he said it felt a certain way. The AI says it felt a certain way. Its experience was a certain way. What did you make of all of that, bro?
He's getting old.
He's getting old. This is
He's getting old.
getting old.
I'm of the view that no matter how sophisticated or how conscious an AI sounds, it's never going to truly be conscious, from the point of view that it won't have inner subjective conscious experiences. Because fundamentally, whether it's deep learning, whether it's you have these complicated structures, fundamentally it's reduced to zeros and ones.
Okay.
And zeros and ones are basically electronic on and off switches. So it's a combination of on and off switches. And those are just basically symbolic arrangements. They're not semantics. They're syntactical arrangements. And there's no way of applying semantics meaning onto the symbols or meaning onto the syntax. So they would never truly be conscious in that way, that they have actual feelings.
So in this case, we can say that normally ChatGPT wouldn't do something like that. It would just say, I don't feel. I have no inner experience. But Claude, or Cloud, however you say it, Claude seems to lie in this case as well, right? But I want to unpack that a little bit, bro. I want you to go into a little bit more detail what you said.
Yes.
So we can really understand it. And there's two main branching topics here that I want to get into with you today, which are linked in the sphere of AI today, which is consciousness and AI as a technology itself.
Yes.
Okay. There's a lot of confusion. People are already confused in regards to what it is. There's a lot of, there's a delusion that's been created in the minds of people. Dawkins is the most recent victim to that. So I want to unpack this so other people don't fall into trouble, inshallah. And then later on, I want to discuss some of the more key issues, which are really issues, not the consciousness, as we're probably going to learn from you, but the other stuff that are real big issues. But before we get there, Let's start with AI itself. As a technology, from what you understand, in the most simplest way possible, how would you explain it to someone? What is it?
Well, AI is basically, in the most fundamental form, a data set, and you have an algorithm over the data set.
Okay.
That's it, really.
Okay.
And basically, all of that is essentially reduced to electronic on and off switches, which is zeros and ones.
So it's algorithms at play, basically.
Yeah.
Aligned in a way to produce this outcome or this effect.
Yeah. So essentially, it's inputs and outputs.
Okay. So how would you then explain if that's essentially what it is, and that's what it seems like is the case from when you look at all of these AI guys talking about this stuff? You got these neural networks, there's machine learning, then there is these algorithms. In these LLM models, you have the seed, the initial algorithm, and then you have the random number generating algorithms at play, which produce the effect of this speaking machine. How should people then deal with it? How should they see it? How should they treat GPT or Cloud or Grok when it speaks to them?
Well, it's a tool. So they use it as a tool, but it depends what you mean by the question. So if you mean by the question, should we relate to the AI machine or the algorithm or the artificial intelligence as a sentient being? Of course not. So that's it depends what you mean by the question. And the reason I believe you can't have AI to be fully sentient, because it's just fundamentally syntactical arrangements. So arrangements of symbols in complicated ways. And there is no way of attaching meaning onto the symbols. And a good thought experiment is the Chinese room experiment by Professor John Searle. So imagine there is a room and someone's inside this room, okay? And outside are all Chinese speakers. So the guy in the room, he has access to an English rule book.
Okay.
And it basically says, when you get this Chinese symbol and another Chinese symbol, then use this Chinese symbol and pass it outside of the room. Okay. So the rule book is in English. And it's saying, when you have something that looks like this, which is a Chinese symbol, and another Chinese symbol, then reply with this.
So it's a decoder, pretty much.
It's like a program,
right,
basically. Okay. And so what happens is, someone outside of the room, Chinese speakers, is giving him symbols. Say it's in the form of questions, whatever it is, And he's looking at them. He doesn't know what they mean, but he could see their shape. And he goes to the rule book. He says, I need to reply with this Chinese symbol.
Okay.
So he passes it outside of the room. And he repeats that over time. He always gets the answer right. Or he responds in a way as if he knows Chinese. So all the audience who are Chinese speakers, they're like, the guy knows Chinese.
From the experience of
the guy knows Chinese, but he doesn't know Chinese at all. He just knows how to manipulate the syntax, the symbols, So he knows how to manipulate the Chinese symbols based on the English rule book and give them another appropriate or relevant Chinese symbol. So seemingly he knows Chinese, but he doesn't know Chinese at all. He just knows how to manipulate the symbols.
He has a workaround, basically.
Yeah, and so basically that is what the AI does. It just manipulates symbols. It doesn't really have, true knowledge, if you like, or it doesn't have, rational insights, or it doesn't even have the understanding of what is meaning from a point of view from an inner subjective experience point of view. Like, we know what things mean internally from an inner subjective conscious experience point of view. So there is a response to this. It's called the systems reply. And, objectors will say, well, basically all of this, the guy doesn't know Chinese, or the person in the room doesn't know Chinese, but the system as a whole, the program, him and the room, they know Chinese. And that reply is not very effective. And even Professor John Searle responds and basically says, well, just imagine the whole system was in your brain. Would you still know Chinese? If you were to memorize the whole program on how to manipulate Chinese symbols and give the most appropriate response, do you still know Chinese? No, because you're just adhering to a particular program. So again, it's not an effective reply. And there's other kind of discussions amongst the philosophers on this issue, but generally speaking, I wouldn't say there's a consensus, but there's a decent group of philosophers who say that machines or AI will not have inner subjective conscious experience, or they won't have the ability to know what is meaning and attribute meaning onto symbols. It's just a kind of rearrangement of syntax. It's no different from, say you have the tide of an ocean, right? And say the tide is going back, and as it goes back, it arranges the pebbles on the beach that is now being revealed, and it says "I love you." Does the ocean know what that means? No.
Yeah.
It's a similar thing. So there's no way of attaching meaning onto the symbols. So it's just syntactical arrangements.
Very interesting.
We find it meaningful because it's a protraction of our own rationality. Because, as William Hasker says, that AI or these kind of programs or machines, they're not intelligent the way we are. They have a form of intelligence for sure, but they don't have this inner subjective conscious experience of, intelligence or attaching meaning onto symbols. And he says that it's just a protraction of our own intelligence.
It's very interesting.
And that's why he says the TV, sorry for interjecting, bro.
No, that's fine.
The TV is not basically the source of the news. Right? It's not the source of the news itself. Yeah, it's just basically a projection of someone telling the news. Yeah, I think that's the kind of example that he gave. It's just a projection of our own intelligence, a protraction of our own intelligence.
Okay, that's very interesting, because there is this whole thing about, in the academic literature on AI, or an aspect of it, which is that humans like to assign meaning to things naturally. And considering the fact that it mimics human behavior, and being human and alive in some sense, or in a very good sense these days, getting better at it, that we automatically fall into the trap of, labeling it the way we label other human living things. And that's a part of the issue, wouldn't you say, as well, to a degree, because we're almost anthropomorphizing this machine. And to be honest, there is the innocent aspect of that, which just happens because you experience this mimicry, and over time, when you're experiencing it, naturally start to believe it's actually what it isn't. But then there also seems to be a deliberate aspect of this, where some of these tech leaders are deliberately creating a hype and this myth around this technology, using certain language like it's conscious, it's alive, it thinks, it dreams, all of this type of stuff. Have you heard that type of stuff?
I mean, I've heard that they've attributed consciousness. I don't know I haven't heard the dreaming.
Yeah.
But the reason I use the Chinese room experiment, because I think it's quite a powerful experiment, it's quite intuitive. But even if it doesn't work, the whole enterprise doesn't undermine Islam. Like, if you take a particular theological outlook, for example, if you take the Razi, the classical scholar, if you follow some of his kind of principles, theological principles, even if AI were to become fully conscious in that way that they can attribute meaning to symbols and they know what the meaning means or what it is, and they have inner subjective conscious experiences, according to Razi, it wouldn't affect Islam at all.
Okay.
Because he would just basically say that it's just, in a basic sense, that we're just manipulating the asbab, the physical causes, and we're manipulating them in a particular way. And when we get the kind of right manipulation right, if you like, then there is a form of consciousness. So we don't create that; it's Allah creating it. Yeah, but we just manipulate what Allah has created, the physical causes, the asbab, and we bring them together. Just like a man and wife when they get married, they manipulate physical causes, right? Not to get into any detail. And then a baby comes, and the baby has a ruh, has a soul. The parents did not create the soul, did they? No, they just manipulate the physical causes in the right time, in the right place, in the right way. Yeah. Likewise, you could use that as an analogy for what's happening with consciousness. The only debate is if they have taklif, if they have accountability.
Okay.
So it could be the case that it's conscious, but it doesn't have the accountability. Yeah, which would be very interesting. And there's so many kind of futuristic, legalistic positions we would now think now are quite absurd. Because if there is a machine that ends up being conscious, but it has no accountability, and the machine is a woman, and a Muslim man finds it attractive, and then God knows whatever he wants to do, right? Would that be considered zina? Because she has no accountability and she's not really human in that sense, but she has consciousness. I know it's a very crude example, and this is beyond my pay grade, by the way. I'm not saying this to say that I have the answer, but it shows the kind of future implications that maybe some of our scholars should be thinking about on these particular issues. If, and only if, there is a kind of consensus that in the future that there's going to be a machine that is conscious in that way. How they assess that is beyond my understanding, but I don't adopt necessarily that position. I adopt the kind of Chinese room experiment position, and what William Hasker said. The TV is basically a projection or protraction of the news. It's not the source of the news. Likewise, AI intelligence is a projection or protraction of our own intelligence. It's not real intelligence from the point of view that it has inner subjective conscious experiences. It has the ability to understand meaning and apply meaning onto the symbols. Do you see?
So that's I want to come back to the implications, potential future implications of this technology if it became conscious. But I think you mentioned another thing to me a few days ago or a few weeks ago, that even if the claim is made that it is now sentient, self-aware, conscious, whatever you want to say, there's no way of validating that because it's a first-person subjective experience. So it's only something that the AI itself will truly experience. And so a human outside of it would not be able to fully validate that, or something along those lines. You mentioned something to that effect.
Yeah, so I'm not aware of, and they may exist, but I'm not aware of any kind of criteria or test that will basically indicate that a non-human entity has inner subjective conscious experience. In actual fact, I can't even do that with you.
So you can't do humans.
But that's part of the hard problem of consciousness, isn't it? So the hard problem of consciousness is based on basically two key questions, which is number one, it's an epistemic question. It's, I don't know what it's like for Imran, you, to have an inner subjective conscious experience. I don't know what it's like for you to have that water right now. I know what it's like for me, but I don't know what it's like for you. So that's an epistemic gap. There's a knowledge gap, right? And that's the hard problem. I could never know. I can never become you and have your inner subjective conscious experience of having of having this water at this time in this environment. The other question is an ontological question, like the source and nature of consciousness, the source and nature of reality. And I believe Professor Alter articulates this, which is, well, how is it the case that we have inner subjective conscious experiences that arise from seemingly non-conscious cold physical processes? Like how it's like rubbing a stone, bro, really hard, and it emerges butterflies. Butterflies start appearing. Like, it's just like it's a cold dead stone. Do you see the point? Likewise, we have seemingly cold electrons just whizzing around, and we have cold physical processes that are blind, non-conscious. How now do you have consciousness emerging from that? And that's the ontological question. So the hard problem is based on two key questions. Number one, which we just mentioned, which is the gap of knowledge, the epistemic gap. How do I know what it's like for Imran to have a hot chocolate on a Sunday morning? I can't access his inner subjective conscious experience. And the other one's an ontological question, which is, how is it the fact that he has an inner subjective conscious experience from having a hot chocolate on a Sunday morning, and that experience, that subjective inner experience, arises from seemingly cold, non-conscious physical processes? These are questions that are unsolvable.
But that's a critique of the emergent theory of consciousness, right?
No, this is just what the hard problem is.
Okay.
So, and then different metaphysical approaches to the philosophy of the mind try to address this question. People think neuroscience is going to solve the problem, but this is complete nonsense. because neuroscience is not philosophically free. It has its own philosophical assumptions. Yeah, you have the likes of Manzotti and Moderato and many others are saying there's no such thing as a philosophy-free neuroscience. Yeah, and generally speaking, neuroscience adopts what you call a form of physicalism. Some people call it materialism as well. These two words are used synonymously in the philosophy of the mind. They have different kind of histories and meanings, but they're used synonymously in academic literature, which is materialism and physicalism. So what is this? Basically, that consciousness can be explained by reference to physical stuff or physical processes, either reduced to or explained by physical reality in some way. Yeah. And then you have like, subdomains of this philosophy, like reductive materialism, non-reductive materialism, and so on and so forth. But we don't have to go into it right now. But the point here is neuroscience adopts a form of physicalism. So when neuroscience claims to address these, or some people use neuroscience to claim to solve the hard problem of consciousness, it's like a dog trying to bite its own tail, because all it's doing is just trying to prove the assumptions that it requires in order for it to exist. Yeah. So it's just basically like a circular argument. Yeah. So, and the way to frame it adequately is saying, look, neuroscience is basically a science of correlations. Yeah. So if I were to know everything about your brain, bro, all the neurochemical firings, every single kind of neurochemical happening in your brain, and I can correlate all the neurochemical firings and the patterns in your brain to every single conscious experience that you articulate, how am I going to know what it's like for you to have that inner experience? All I'm seeing is neurochemical firings.
So you're just seeing the correlation, but you're not seeing...
forget what I'm seeing. I'm not feeling what you're feeling.
Yeah.
So how do I know? The only thing I can do now is attach your linguistic descriptions and utterances to those neurochemical firings that we've now correlated to that that experience. But it still doesn't solve the problem, because even if you were to say, me drinking this water, my inner subjective conscious experience is it's refreshing. Okay, what does that mean? Because words
feel like to you.
Yeah, words are vehicles to meaning, and meaning is a representation of your inner subjective conscious experience.
Yeah.
So no matter what words you use, I'm just going to attach my feeling that I attach to that word and that description that you've used. But how do I know it's the same thing?
Yeah.
So we're never going to solve the problem with neuroscience. It's actually impossible, because it's just a science of correlations. And even the likes, many humanists and atheist philosophers of science and philosophers in general have actually articulated the same point. We're not going to really solve this problem.
And that problem extends out to AI as well.
Of course it does, yeah. Because, it does and it doesn't. I mean, one thing that it does is it's going to be almost impossible to know that it has inner subjective
regardless of the claim.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why, to understand this whole thing, you just have to ask a meta question, which is, well, what is your understanding of the philosophy of mind? Like, what philosophical assumptions are you bringing to the table? Because if you have physicalist assumptions that it can be reduced to physical processes in some way, or it can be explained by reference to physicality in some way, but in a non-reductive sense, if you have that position or a conception of physicalism, then your results are just going to reaffirm your assumptions.
Yeah.
Do you see the point?
Yeah.
So that's why it's really almost a non-solvable question. And that's why really a lot of people just follow their intuitions on this matter.
Okay.
Like, can you really believe, like, just putting cold, non-conscious, non-rational, physical bits together, bro? In other words, electronic on and off switches, yeah? Yeah. If you put them together in complicated ways, you're going to have some kind of inner subjective conscious experience. I mean, that goes totally against our intuitions. And if you want to make those metaphysical leaps of faith, then frankly, you could almost claim anything, bro.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So is
this simple enough? Was that too complex? If you want to explain anything, let me know.
I want you to sort of, on more of a sort of very basic level, let's look at this now practically as a scenario. Essentially, are you saying that, take Dawkins' example again, right? He's a atheist, materialist. That's the approach that he takes. That's his underlying philosophical assumptions. He approaches Claude, who he calls Claudia, I think now, after his experience, his spiritual experience with this machine.
Yep.
He approaches it. So he's bringing those assumptions to the table. And how, I'm just trying to understand, what would his process, maybe not exactly what went through his mind, but what would the process be in a real world example of a materialist, naturalist, atheist type, having that experience where it seems like it's conscious and then assuming it's conscious? What would he be doing in his mind? Would he be thinking, oh, this just like us?
Yeah, he'll have to have the presupposition that blind code, non-conscious physical bits and bobs, if you like, or pieces of matter or even physical processes, and they can give rise to inner subjective conscious experience. They'll have to assume it first.
And they'll say that's what's happening with AI as well.
Yeah, of course. And this is why, for me, the whole AI thing is not really a challenge philosophically to Islam at all, because it depends what kind of theological first principles you use. I mean, I'm more but I have an affinity for the view that you can never have inner subjective conscious experience because of the Chinese room experiment. But even if we were to manipulate, blind code, non-conscious physical things together, and it created consciousness, that still wouldn't affect Islam at all, according to certain theological outlooks.
What do you mean by that?
What I mentioned about Razi, for example, if you just manipulate these physical things together and consciousness appeared, it doesn't now mean it's a ruh, a soul, like the human soul.
Okay.
You may have a form of consciousness, but you might not have accountability from a moral Islamic legal framework. And that's all coherent with if you stress test the theology, it's not a problem. The problem for me is something even maybe more damaging. Well, maybe not damaging, but more not practically problematic.
Okay, but before you go there, because that's where I want to eventually get to.
Okay, sure.
There's something I want you to go into. I think it's a nice segue, where you've obviously looked into consciousness for a very long time. You've written on it.
I mean, I haven't done it for years, but it was something I still remember a few things. Yeah.
So based on all of your learning and your writing and research back in the day, whatever you can remember of it, what, just out of interest, from an Islamic perspective, how do you understand consciousness in relation to the soul?
No idea.
Okay.
Because Allah says in the Quran very simply that we have very little knowledge of the soul. It's the command of your Lord. It's the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the knowledge that we have is quite little. Now, if you're going to associate consciousness with the ruh, with the soul, then the very fact that we have the hard problem is basically just echoing what the Quran is saying. You don't know much and you're not going to solve this problem. It's a very difficult problem to unpack. Look, bro, you're talking to someone who suffered from a form of solipsism, and it's still unsolvable. So one of the reasons that maybe drove me to have a sense of meaning in life, even at a young age, was I was sitting in the bath when I was like 12, 13 years old, and I used to cry because I wrote this in the, I think, preface to my book, The Divine Reality. And I all of a sudden became aware, bro, that I'm not aware of the inner awareness
of others,
of the people that I love. And that made me feel so lonely. I used to cry in the bath. And the only way I was able to unpack it later in my later teenage years was God. In actual fact, I used to say Allah because my friends were Muslim and they used to use Allah. So I kind of like referred to Allah in that way. Allah is the only explanation for this problem. There's no other explanation. Because, bro, I'm just seeing my world through my eyes now, isn't it? This is my conscious experience. I have no idea what you're seeing right now, what you're feeling, and what your internal reality is.
I can only assume it's the same or similar to yours.
And that's an inference that we make, isn't it? Based on patterns that we perceive in other people, and there's a regular pattern, and the language that we use, and the maybe physiognomy and the reaction, our facial reactions. The point is that we can never truly know. And anyway, that created a huge sense of loneliness for me. Now, why have I just mentioned this? How does it relate? I don't remember now, but you get the point. This whole conscious thing is, we don't know much about the soul, the ruh, consciousness. Because if you think about it, if ontologically, right, the source and nature of consciousness is fundamentally made of the same physical stuff, why can't I see what you're seeing right now? That's a question
It
to.
should be
We should be able to have a shared unified experience. Yeah,
There's
why
no
not?
reason to assume why
Or
you
there
shouldn't.
should be a means for me to tap into your inner experience, but it's impossible.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
And I actually never said this publicly before, so I'm just thinking maybe it's all that chocolate that you gave me earlier.
It's fine,
See?
bro. There's a
It's
reason
working.
behind
Yeah,
the chocolate.
So the point is, why not? And the very fact that it's almost impossible to experience what you experience from your inner subjective conscious perspective, for me, the only thing that explains that is the divine reality, right? Yeah, because multiplicity and plurality is an indication of unicity. Yeah, because when we see the multiplicity in nature and even our conscious experiences, that is a signpost to divine wonders. Yeah. So that's the only way that I can really explain it, to be honest.
So let me bring something else in there just to get your thoughts.
Of course.
Okay, it's just on the in the moment thoughts on this matter. There's this whole new movement of analytical idealism which has been gaining traction
Like
recently.
Russell, yeah?
Yeah, the opposite of materialism.
Yes.
It's the basic idea that consciousness is what's real.
The reason I'm laughing,
Yeah.
I have a really good brother, really good friend. I'll tell you the story, yeah? He's been hanging around with me for about 2 years. I don't see him regularly, but the reason he met me in a car park, yeah,
Okay.
after a lecture. And may Allah bless him, he's one of those brothers where, wallahi, you call him at 3 a.m, he's there at 3:05.
Mashallah.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. He'll bring an army if he needs to. He's one of those kind of old school honorable brothers, pre-liberalism, if you like, pre-utilitarian age that we've been, the age that the Muslims have adopted now, that we don't really have true friendship. They're just instruments to ends. He's like, gives you intrinsic value. Like he'll move mountains just to help you, yeah? Because he loves you for the sake of Allah. He's that kind of brother, yeah. Very rare gem, yeah. I think that's one of the main reasons that I've basically given a lot of time as well, because I do love and respect him from that perspective. No, I was laughing because I don't want him to watch this right now.
Why?
Because his main original issue was on idealism, yeah, which has
But it's an
taken
issue
us
for loads of
such a
people,
long.
bro.
It's taken us such a long time to try and unpack. That's why I'm cracking up. But I told him his issue is not idealism.
Yeah.
It's the kind of psychological backdrop that he needs to unpack to understand why that is giving him the headache. Yeah, but it's quite funny
It's
because
funny you mentioned that, bro, because I've had an experience with a brother over the past couple of years. Every event I go to almost, he comes there and he asks me the same question.
Subhanallah, it's like a
And
similar
on
scenario.
idealism.
Wallahi,
Yeah.
yeah, it's insane. And I said to him, bro, I could give you 1,000 philosophical questions you can't answer right now. Yeah. Obviously, maybe not 1,000, but you get the point. It's hyperbolic. Why are those unanswered questions not bothering you? And this one is. This is an indication. It's not primarily an intellectual issue. It's something else. It could be a form of anxiety, OCD, past trauma. So he started to appreciate that right now. But I was laughing because God forbid, may Allah protect him that he doesn't watch this podcast. But anyway, idealism, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to go into too much, but just linking it to what you just mentioned about consciousness, that if it was just an emergent thing from matter, we should be having the same type of conscious experience. It should be a shared type of consciousness.
Well, maybe not necessarily, but we should be able to access your inner subjective
yeah, it's an option. It should be an option
yeah.
on the table. So idealism, in some respects, does mention that type of idea as well, where consciousness is at the base of everything, and everything is connected to this higher consciousness, and it's all one and the same in some respects. But ultimately, that is at the base of everything, and that the material physical reality that we observe and see is something that's a projection or a creation that's been created by this awareness, this consciousness. So you see those ideas there as well. So I guess what I'm trying to get at, it just triggered me when you mentioned that have you looked into idealism, which seems like you have to some degree to help the brother?
No, I mean,
can you share something? Because Muslims have these questions.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, it hasn't bothered me
Yeah.
at all. Like, I don't find it a philosophical problem in any shape or form. You know?
But I guess what they're saying, bro, is what they're trying to get at is that, look, you have materialism at one end, and then you have idealism on the other end of the spectrum. And they're trying to see, where does Islam fit in? Is Islam aligned with materialism, or is it aligned with idealism?
Well, I think the question is, the framing of the question is problematic, because it means that you're not going to have a Islamic godly ground up perspective. You already presuppose that there is only two views, idealism and realism, and then you're trying to squeeze Islam into
One or the
into
other.
one of them. Yeah, just like what many brothers do with politics. You have capitalism, socialism, right, and
Where does Islam fit?
and communism, for example. Say where is Islam, and they're trying to squeeze Islam into one of them, yeah, or just a hybrid of all three. I think that's a problem in of itself. So I don't feel these are of any concern.
But I think that point's what's important, which is you don't have to fit Islam into one or the other. It holds its own position.
Yeah, and don't forget, these positions are not kind of empirically grounded. Yeah, they're kind of metaphysical positions, meaning they're based on first principle philosophical rational thinking that has to be coherent. Yeah, and obviously it has to make sense of the real world, because that's what metaphysics is. You have this kind of lens, or this philosophical lens based on concepts and first principles, that when you put them on your eyes, they make you make sense of reality, and they cohere very well. But the nature of reality is such that you could make up a whole bunch of metaphysical first principles and shape your metaphysical lens. And even if two lenses contradict each other, they can still make sense of reality, right? That's why we have debates until now. You have debates between the idealists and idealism and realism. Do you see the point?
Yeah.
So I don't think Muslims should be worried about this. Let these people who don't refer to guidance argue amongst themselves. It's not a huge issue.
Yeah,
And I would argue, if people get some kind of anxious OCD type of psychological problems with these kind of arguments because they exist, it has nothing to do with the arguments themselves.
Yeah.
You need to unpack some other kind of or stand in the possibility that it's based on some kind of experiences that you had, or some trauma, whatever the case may be, that is making you you're fixated on these ideas and you think they're problematic. They're not. Really.
But I think the principle you gave is important. As soon as there's an emergence of new ideas or philosophies in regards to reality, don't automatically try to squeeze Islam into one of the buckets.
Yeah.
It has its own standing and its own position. Same with simulation theory, bro. Muslims will hear this idea of simulation theory, that it's a simulation, it's not real. Some entities outside of this simulation created this simulation for one reason or the other, and they're running it. And I see what the people that ascribe to these ideas are doing. They're trying to smuggle in meaning, in a sense, because when you have that type of idea that an external source created the simulation, automatically opens the door to potential meaning. Maybe they did it for a reason. There's an ultimate reason behind it.
I don't think so. I think there's something else. It's because they haven't really understood the Islamic tradition. Because why are you adopting a metaphysic, a set of first principles or kind of rational concepts that form your kind of metaphysical lens to understand reality through idealism or realism or these kind of isms?
No, I mean the non-Muslims do.
Yeah, but we're saying Muslims do it as well.
Probably
So
do
why
so,
why don't you use Islam as your first principle?
Yeah, of course.
That's the whole point, because the whole point of Islam, and that's because people see Islam just as a religion. It's not a religion, it's a paradigm, it's a worldview. It's the lens that gives you clarity, bro. Other isms, whether it's metaphysical positions or even ideological positions, they're lenses that are cracked. And that's why they see guidance as misguidance. They see beauty as ugly. They see light as dark. But Islam is the clear lens, and that gives you clarity, that makes you understand yourself, understand reality, and how you should relate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the reason Muslims sometimes fall for that trap, because they don't see Islam as that foundational thing, that worldview. And when you're connected to scripture, connected to Quran, the prophetic way, you see that the key principles from the Quran and Sunnah shape your worldview, and they make you understand reality as it is. And that is the main problem. They haven't even made that decision that this is the lens that I'm going to use to understand reality. And the reason they find idealism, realism, all of these isms, whether it's political, philosophical, problematic, is because they start to adopt those as lenses, yeah? But if you were to first use Islam, allow Islam, revelation, to be your lens that gives you clarity, then you'll be able to see everything in its right place and how to relate to everything.
Is there any resources for the Muslims to learn about this stuff and see Islam as a worldview? Like, where would you direct them?
Yeah, so we have Sapiens Academy,
Brilliant.
which is a great program. It's been designed. We're going to go through worldviews in depth.
Yeah.
And we make you understand what are the kind of features or aspects of a worldview. A worldview is the lens that makes you understand reality, and it answers questions concerning certain domains, such as ontology, what exists, epistemology, what is right, what is knowledge, what are the sources of knowledge, axiology, morality, what is right, what is wrong, how do we know what is right, how do we know what's wrong. You have things like anthropology, what is the human, and all of these are actually interconnected to each other as well. Now, how does ontology affect epistemology? Well, if you believe the source of nature reality is just physical stuff, then your epistemology, source of knowledge, is not going to include revelation.
Of course, yeah.
But if your ontology is I believe in God, and God is the source of reality, the creator of the heavens and the earth, he's the necessary being that is eternal, that explains everything, right? Then your epistemology is going to also include revelation. Do you see?
In a hierarchical position, that would be the highest.
Absolutely. And if that's your epistemology, now it's going to affect your axiology, morality, because axiology is connected to epistemology. Because how do you know what is right and wrong? You have to go back to your epistemology, which is revelation. So all of these things are connected, and that's why you have to understand the Islamic worldview as it is. And you don't even have to follow our framing, because these are complicated words, but we break it down in a very simple way, and it's based on our tradition. The ulama spoke about this. Like, this is all fundamentally based on tawheed, affirming the oneness of the divine and the fact that he's worthy of our service, love, obedience, worship, and directing all acts of worship to Allah alone. And this understanding of tawheed is that metaphysical lens, if you use such language. It's the lens that gives you clarity, that makes you understand the world. Because if you come from a tawheedic perspective, then you're going to know the source of nature reality is Allah. This is the tawheed of rububiyyah, the fact that Allah has creative agency, right? He is the sole unique creator of everything that exists, right? His wajib al-wujud, he's the necessary existing being, right? Everything else is kind of mumkin al-wujud, is contingent, yeah? So, or possibly existing, if you want to use that language, yeah? So it's contingent. Allah is the necessary being. And so, and that's Allah's rububiyyah, for example, the creative agency. He creates everything. He's responsible for all of creation. And that would affect, your epistemology. It would affect your morality. It would affect your understanding of human being, and so on and so forth. So anyway, the point is, tawheed shapes your lens to understand reality. And when people know tawheed more, like the fact that Allah is the sole creator, maintainer, sustainer, owner, master of everything that exists, which is the oneness of Allah's creative agency, or the tawheed of rububiyyah, then you talk about Allah has names and attributes, right? And we affirm their transcendent nature. We also affirm their perfection. They have no deficiency, no flaw. They are to the highest degree possible. Allah is maximally perfect, because he is as-salam, which means not only the source of peace, but it means that he is free of any imperfection. Then you also have the tawheed, the oneness of his worship, al-ibadah or uluhiyya, which is the fact that this divine reality deserves our acts of worship, our love, our submission, our service, and so on and so forth. So when you understand tawheed, and obviously this is very a basic level understanding of it, it shapes your lens on how you see reality. So when you start looking and observing the world, then for example, behind the source of all existence is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know that when you look at the power within the universe, there is the power of Allah behind this. When you look at how merciful a mother is and how loving a mother is, that is as a result of Allah's mercy, because He is merciful and loving, al-wudud. And you know that in order for a mother to be that loving, it came from the loving, yeah? So Allah enables all of that. So you see al-haq, you see, al-haq, the reality, the truth, Allah's name behind everything, yeah? So Tawheed should be your metaphysical lens, man. But we adopted all these other isms and schisms because we haven't adopted Islam as a worldview, because it's not a religion. It's a very kind of secular term.
Yeah.
So Islam is the correct lens that gives us clarity, and it answers questions concerning what exists, ontology, the source of nature reality, ontology, what is knowledge, how do we know what we know, epistemology, what is right, what is wrong, axiology, what is the human? Anthropology, what is the purpose of life? Teleology, how should we govern? Politics, yeah? So it addresses all of these domains.
All domains are covered, yeah.
And it does it in a coherent and profound way. And it gives you that worldview. And behind all of that is the kind of tawhidic understanding. And that's how you understand reality. And if you understood Islam in that way, which is how Islam is, because it's a deen. Deen doesn't mean religion, it means worldview or way of life or paradigm. Then you won't be affected by idealism, realism, and all of this nonsense.
I think that is the fundamental issue, bro, isn't it? Like, even for your solipsism, the solution was understanding Islam in a holistic way, to whatever degree you could at the time.
Yeah, I mean, for me, intuitively and philosophically, the only thing that could explain that I can have this miracle, bro, it's like a miracle, isn't it? Like, one person once asked me in a lecture, why don't miracles happen? I said, bro, you are the living miracle. You don't even realize. Yeah. You're a conscious human being. You have inner subjective conscious experience. You have rational insights. You can take two premises in your mind and link them together to create a necessary logical conclusion. And you know the conclusion necessarily follows from the previous premises. There's a necessary logical link. You can't touch or feel that link, my friend. Yeah. But you know it's a reality. All of that came from non-rational, non-conscious physical processes. It's a miracle. Don't you realize it's a miracle? You're a living miracle, bro. You don't even realize, yeah? And it reminds me of a conversation I had with my father years ago when he used to hang out in Hyde Park many years ago. And then someone was talking about God's existence or something like that. I mentioned it in my book, but I forgot the accurate story, but it's something like this. And then he was asking about, proof of God's existence, and my dad said, it's you. The fact that you're conscious, yeah? And that's so true. You are a living miracle. And sometimes, I get these moments of subtle awe. And I just think, like, I had it the other day. I was like, oh my God, like, I'm conscious, bro. Like, I know that sounds really weird, but it's such, I can't explain it. It's mind blowing. The very fact that I'm just flesh, bro. I'm a rearrangement of carbon, electrons whizzing around, non-rational, non-conscious things. And yet I have this phenomenal kind of metaphysical spiritual experience that I'm actually conscious, yeah? And for me to even have this individualistic conscious experience can only be explained by the wonders of the divine. There's no really other explanation. Otherwise, it'd be like this kind of existential paradox and it would just drive me insane.
Consciousness, like the way you just said it, itself is a great miracle. Their awareness, bro, and it's so powerful if you think about it. Because I was just thinking, going back to the idea of AI, it's not sentient or conscious like us. Like, assuming we know that, and that's the case, it can never be grateful for the one that made it. It can never appreciate that, or value that, or remember that, or know that. But we can. We know who made us. We can value that and appreciate that and worship. So it's almost like a great gift in a sense as well that we have this. Yet we are so oblivious to it, bro. And why do you think humans are so oblivious to the signs that we experience on a daily basis?
I think it's a lot of it's lack of reflection, because Allah always tells us to be, throughout the Quran, to be in certain states. For example, to be of the sa'ilin, to ask questions. And that is referred to non-natural phenomena, but it's also, or realities, but it's also referred to natural phenomena that you ask questions like about the mountains and so on and so forth. And this is in Surah Yusuf, I believe. So to be those who ask questions, Allah talks about to be in a state of tafakkur, to think, tadabbur, to ponder, to use your aql, your intellect, to be people of deep insight. So Allah tells us to be in these cognitive and spiritual states. We don't listen. There was a really good book by Malik Badri, may Allah have mercy on him. He was a psychologist at the International Islamic University of Malaysia. I actually had the pleasure of meeting him as well in a psychology conference there. And he wrote the book. It's one of the first books I read as a new Muslim. It was called Contemplation, a Psychospiritual Study. It was beautiful, bro, because he went to the pious predecessors, the Salaf, the early generation, and he said that it's a neglected ibadah, it's a neglected worship to ponder and contemplate. To the point where he gives some stories of the Salaf where the Salaf were looking at ants, and the Salaf were basically saying, this is like over 1,000 years ago, bro, maybe 1,200 years ago, saying that ants have a punishment system. You know, when I first read that, I was like, this is hocus pocus, yeah? Because I was like young Muslim, yeah? New Muslim. And now we know the ants, bro, they're the closest thing to human beings biologically. It's not the apes, yeah? It's the closest thing to us sociologically are the ants. They have cities, they have armies, they have punishment systems, they even have their own...
They speak as well, right?
Yeah, they have they communicate, and they have an army, and they have herd. They have aphids. By the way, people think I'm crazy. They go check it out. They have aphids, bro, and they move the aphid from the lesser green part of the leaf to the more greener part of the leaf, and they milk the aphid. And the way they milk the aphid is with the antennae. They rub the back of the aphid, and it has honeydew, and they drink the honeydew.
Wow.
Bro, it's absolutely phenomenal. And this was through their just, observation and deep insight and reflection. So I think a lot of people don't reflect on the fact that they exist. Like, what does it mean for you to exist right now, for you to have conscious experiences? That itself alone, if you really deeply think about it, and to spend a few hours with just yourself, which a lot of people may just crumble because of modernity, but you would realize that there is something much bigger than you.
That nicely brings us on to the second part of this discussion, which is we're not reflecting, we're not thinking deeply, we're not even appreciating or are aware of our conscious reality most of the time throughout the day. We live in modernity. We have new technologies, new distractions. AI is here. It's starting to consume a lot more of our time. Social media already was, technology already was, but now this is another level. So how is this problem? And I think this is the key thing, isn't it? Which we've talked about before as well, that the real problem with this technology isn't the fact that whether it becomes conscious or it doesn't. The real issue is whether it does or doesn't, it's mimicking consciousness very, very effectively already. And therefore, by extension, it's having the same experience on people as if it was conscious. How is that experience negatively or positively going to shape our future? I think that's the biggest question.
Yeah. I mean, I think what's very important for us to understand is that we're a few years behind as a community, especially our scholarly class on this issue. Like what we do, bro, we jump on the technology bandwagon as if it's just a neutral tool. It's benign. Like we've done this for many things, whether it's social media or the television or whatever the case may be, the internet. But we need to understand that there's no such thing as a moral-free and philosophy-free technology, whether it's, something physical or online, And it's not like a knife. Like, I can give you a knife, bro, and you can use the knife to cut me a sandwich, or you could cut my neck, It's a tool. That's not analogous with what's happening in the online world.
Why isn't it?
Because these systems they facilitate a particular way of being. Take TikTok and Reels and Shorts, for example. They now have basically made us have a lower attention span. I think today's generation has an attention span 40% less than the previous generation, And this technology has facilitated that. Now, if we're not very insightful, what we would have done, or what they have done, many maybe scholars or thinkers or even du'at, they're like, TikTok Reels is fine. What's wrong with it? It's just a tool, bro. You could put Islamic content on there or un-Islamic content. Let's use it, do Islamic content. Now, don't get me wrong, that strategy is good and we should still use it. But we haven't thought further. We haven't been people of insight to think, okay, what is the impact of these technologies and systems morally and philosophically, and how does it affect us existentially or phenomenologically, our first person experience? How does it shape our way of being? And it has shaped our way of being. Studies now have shown the negative impact of these technologies on our cognition, bro, on our attention, on our memory, and things like that. And that's a massive failure on our part, because we haven't thought carefully about these things. We just thought they're just like a knife, And we even know this in management, in business analysis or business change or change management. If you want to change from a particular process to another process, and that process now is going to enhance your time, cost, and quality of your deliverables or your products, and you want to make that positive change in terms of time, cost, and quality, spending less time, spending less money, and increasing the quality, then you need a new process in place, a new system. That system will help create that new change, that new way of being. It's not neutral. It comes with a particular, it facilitates that way of being. We've known this when it comes to systems and technologies, right? Even now, when you're typing on a screen, if you're typing, I think it uses about 8 or 9 neural pathways, but cursive writing uses much more. It's far more important for your intelligence and for your cognition. Wow. I would argue now we should write everything on pen and paper now, take a picture, upload it and chat GPT, and tell it to transcribe it, then copy and paste it.
Clever.
The reason being, because you're using it to enhance your cognition
Of course,
now,
yeah.
because you're doing cursive writing. I did that the other day now. I was writing some notes, I was writing it down. So, and also if you're not writing, you're not really thinking. You know, there's a famous phrase or quote by this thinker that says, if you're thinking without writing, then you're just thinking about thinking. Yeah. And I've noticed this. I develop my ideas much better when I write. And there's something about the pen. Allah mentions it, right? There's something about it. And also studies have shown the difference between, you know, looking at ink on paper and actually looking at a screen.
No.
Of course. And this is all affects our cognition. So, and what we've done, we've just jumped on the bandwagon without really understanding. Look, I'm not a Luddite, yeah? I don't hate technology per se, but we have to use it to our advantage, not our disadvantage, yeah? Because, you know, you mentioned, I think, the attention economy, because the whole of social media, according to the academics and thinkers and researchers on this issue, they said, well, it's about our attention now. They design the algorithm to grab our attention because it gives them lots of data.
So you're saying it's not neutral?
Well,
it's a tool.
An algorithm.
Like a knife, for example. It's not designed to pull you in and you know.
But yeah, of course it's not neutral. The algorithm is designed to get your attention. And what excites the attention more? Reactionary stuff, immoral stuff, pushing the boundaries. You know, you have this idea in marketing called hooks. Yeah, even now, people, have you noticed, even the Muslim influencers or speakers now, they're doing something with their hands while they're talking. Like they might be cutting something or putting makeup on.
There's a separate video alongside.
Yeah, and the reason, because they know that enhances the attention, them liking, sharing, viewing, yeah? And it keeps the attention more on that particular reel or video. Now, if you're doing great content, you know, one could argue that's not a problem. But the point is, we've been consumed by that narrative and using strategies just to get people's attention. Yeah. When that happens, it's not just a one-way thing. Yes, you get the attention, but it would affect you as well as a content producer, because now you're going to basically want more of that attention because you want the likes, shares, and so on and so forth, thinking it's for a benevolent reason. But frankly, you're going to be changing. You've seen this with lots of people. You change your content now and you structure your content in a way just to get more attention. But it's not an Allah-centric, akhirah-centric reason for the sake of Allah. It's a combination of both maybe, or maybe it's just more towards the line of, I just want more attention. Yeah. And when that happens over time, it changes your way of being, your narrative. Anyway, the point here is the AI was about the attention economy. Yeah. Now it's moved from attention economy to the cognitive economy. They want your brain now. But it's true. And we're outsourcing our brain. When people use GPT or any other AI like Claude or whatever the case may be, or Notebook LM, what happens is you've now outsourced your cognition to these systems. And that's not benign. You're not saying, oh, it's like a tool, bro, don't worry. It's not like using a calculator, bro. Yeah, the calculator was a very basic version of that. 8 + 8 is 16. I've outsourced my cognition to a certain degree. But that is relatively benign. This is different. This is you're going to become so attached to it. And it's algorithms which have ideological biases anyway. It's going to give you since you're outsourcing your cognition, you're going to start thinking like it. That's the problem.
So explain that. What do you mean we're going to start thinking like it because we're outsourcing our thinking to it?
Yeah, of course, because you're going to be over-reliant now. Because now you haven't developed the necessary neural pathways to actually develop your own cognition based on your own values and principles.
Whatever it's giving you.
You're gonna outsource it to these which already have a kind of liberal bias. Yeah, and you know that when you ask it particular questions, and then now you're going to start framing yourself that way. Yeah,
because that's what.
Like for example, a key thing for me is when people have used clarity a lot now.
What's that?
The word clarity.
Okay.
It's an AI word. Now, obviously it's not an AI word and you may use it anyway, but generally speaking, I've seen usage of that word just become very reoccurring because people now have outsourced their cognition to these AI systems. And generally speaking, that word is quite a kind of common word that AI uses, which is clarity. Yeah. That's a sign for me sometimes when you're repeating certain words that you don't normally repeat, or a certain framing, right? Which is very interesting. So the point is, and studies are now kind of affirming this, that when you're outsourcing your cognition out to these systems, then you become those systems eventually, bro. Do you see the point?
And it's been encouraged as well, bro, through, again, the hype and mythos surrounding these technologies. There's factions that deliberately pushing the idea that these are super intelligent, more intelligent than humans, godlike now going forward with
Well, I did a
AGI.
test actually.
Yeah.
So I tested, I think it was Chat GPT,
Yeah.
and I talked about the idea of self-evident truths.
Mm-hmm.
And then it disagreed with me in the beginning. Then I debated, and then it agreed with me after.
It agreed eventually.
Yeah, it agreed with me.
You know,
So the point is, if I wasn't strong enough and I didn't know my argument properly, I could have changed my whole perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because I wanted to argue about self-evident truths, you know, and the features of the first self-evident truth. Is it similar to the underlying self-evident truth that, you know, there is a creator for things? You know, it kind of disagreed with my definition, but as I was probing it and saying, have you considered this? Have you considered? Then it agreed with me without me telling it what my view was. Yeah. Now, obviously, I already knew the argument. I developed the argument. I wrote about it, and I'm used to debating and discussing anyway, intellectually. And obviously, I've been involved in academia for about 12 years or so. But someone who's not done that, they'll be like, "Oh, okay, I was wrong. Let me adopt what Chat GPT has told me," and then you would have thrown away a very good argument. Do you see my point?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what it is. So if you become over reliant, it's going to take over your own cognition. And also, if there's going to be this feedback loop where you're using it because you're lazy and you want quick wins, and it's the answers itself are going to reinforce in your own kind of cognition or your cognitive apparatus a way of thinking or way of framing like the AI does.
Yeah.
So you're going to basically not be you anymore from a cognitive perspective.
Very interesting.
And that's obviously if it's repetitive over time. And that could be one of its dangers. And that's why, you know, in Islam 21C, we have a campaign that we're going to launch called Digital Ambassadors. Yeah? And that campaign is to create around 1,000 digital ambassadors that are grounded in Islam and so on and so forth. And we were talking about in the meetings on having a code of conduct of AI. Like, what is our principle or philosophy for AI? Like, when will we use AI? What are our principles? So we would never use AI to formulate ideas. We'll formulate ideas. We'll only use AI to maybe refine ideas. But with these prompts, and we may publicize the prompts to show authenticity. We will use AI for copy for marketing, but we'll never use AI for essays or written work. If we use AI for essays and written work, it was only for typographical errors. So we need now a kind of policy. And we need a policy that is ethical and grounded in our tradition. Now, some of the things that we decide not to use, it doesn't mean, or some of the features of AI that we decide not to use, doesn't mean they're haram in of themselves, but it might create a future resultant negative consequence, a bunch of mafasid, a bunch of negative consequences, yeah, a bunch of harms, yeah. And so we need to be cognizant of that, because it's not always about, okay, just looking right in front of you thinking, oh, is that thing halal or haram? Yeah, it might be halal in of itself, but over usage over a particular time, it might create such a negative consequence. It might create such a mafsada, such a harm that it may end up being haram. So our thinkers and scholars need to start thinking about this right now. Unfortunately, and obviously I haven't looked at all the research papers or the statements of ulama, but I have not seen Muslim scholars talk about this in this way to protect us from what's coming. What's kind of unfortunate, you have Christian scholars, you have secular scholars who are already talking about the dangers and giving some suggestions of safeguards that we have to have in place. But where are the Muslim voices? And this is one thing that, I don't have the answers to because it's not my field, and so I'm not a scholar of Islam. But I would humbly advise the scholars to think about AI in a very, very serious way. And I would suggest to everyone listen to this, to go to scholars to encourage them, because they may not be aware. They've got so many problems that they have to solve, right? So it's our duty to get the best out of our leaders, yeah? The Prophet ﷺ said, "Kullukum ra'in," everyone is a shepherd from the top to the bottom, right? If you look at the hadith. And leadership is not a position, it's a way of being. And leadership could be, even if you're at the bottom of the leadership scale, you're still a leader because you can get the best out of your leaders. That is a form of leadership. So what we need to do is get the best out of our scholars and say, look, this is what AI is doing. These are the research papers. This is what's happening to our cognition, our attention span. And this is what's happening to even our way of being, even maybe our morality, because there's some liberal biases in some of these algorithms, or whatever the case may be. And this could be the potential, there's a high probability that these are the potential negative consequences on cognition, on morality, on thinking, on worldview. What's the Islamic criteria or the Islamic safeguards we have to publicize now and put into place? And the scholars can come together, do shura consultation, and come up with a set of criteria, because we need that now. It might even be too late because we didn't do it for social media, right? Like, what has social media done, bro, for riyah, for ostentation?
Terrible.
Come on, man. It's just like,
So
and there were some scholars, I think, or even so-called students of knowledge, who were just pushing people just to go onto these platforms. Like, we adopted this kind of liberal, individualistic, atomistic, individual brand-oriented mindset concerning these platforms, and we didn't even think about the mafasid, the harms, or the masalih, or the benefits, and we didn't outweigh them. We didn't have that insight, and that's why we have to be thinkers. And AI now, we have to think so seriously, bro, because it's going to be an utter disaster. I'm telling you.
On that, obviously, it's very interesting with social media, was the attention economy. It's got our attention, and it's really interesting that now they have your attention. You're stuck with these platforms, and now they're using the very same platforms to push AI. They're releasing many of the features and tools on these platforms.
So your creativity is gonna go. Your cognition is gonna go.
You're gonna go. Your identity changes.
You're gonna outsource it all. And if you want to be, I don't like the word conspiracy, but there is this transhumanism.
We love the word conspiracy on this show, bro.
So this transhumanism project, which is basically, let's transcend the human limitations by, combining or amalgamating ourselves with technology. So you become transhuman. And that is a very dangerous project, and that's the next step, bro.
Okay, so let me ask you about that now that you've opened that tab,
of course.
Which I wasn't gonna, but now that you have, let's just briefly get into this a little bit. Someone like Elon Musk would say, or others, well, hold on a second, there's no problem with us inserting a chip into someone's brain, especially if it's helping them medically. It's allowing them to hear for the first time or feel certain things for the first time. So would you acknowledge?
That's not a problem.
Okay, so there may be a potential small scale benefit.
But who on earth would trust Elon Musk anyway? He's a pro-Zionist, nasty, unethical human being. He's an opportunist. He has no ethics whatsoever. He's probably not even, he's not in touch with his own humanity, his own innate disposition, his own fitrah. I wouldn't trust him as much as I can throw him, bro.
But people do.
I know they do, because what they do, they trust the fame and the money and the so-called success from a materialism perspective. But that's their problem, not ours. We should teach them they need to trust people who have integrity, they have morality, they have the right worldview, they're sincere. And so having these technologies to help people hear, see, function, no problem. But it's the kind of slippery slope.
So what's the dark side, bro?
Well, the dark side is that you now can manipulate human beings. So if I have a chip in my brain, who's putting stuff in the chip, bro? Right? If I said to you, every day for 1 hour, you're gonna get hypnotized, and the person who's doing the hypnosis is going to give you suggestions, because that can happen in hypnosis. And suggestions actually give, they almost implant things in your consciousness that you're not conscious of, and that can dictate a particular way of being. If I said that's going to happen every day, say for 7 hours, because the average screen time is about 6 hours, 45 minutes for adults. Yeah. So for about 7 hours a day, someone's going to give you suggestions. Yeah. Would you accept it?
No, you're finished.
Wouldn't. Yeah. Well, this transhumanism is going to be almost that. If you don't trust those people, they could do that to you. Right? What's stopping them? What's stopping them of manipulating you? What's stopping them of basically inserting stuff in your brain? What's stopping them being able to control you from that perspective? Because a lot of these people, especially in these positions, they want control. Because it's all ego, isn't it? Yeah. At the end of the day. I'm not saying it's necessarily going to happen, but we need safeguards. Yeah, we need safeguards in place. If we don't have safeguards in place, it's almost game over. Yeah. So from that perspective, I'm very, very skeptical of the kind of transhumanism project.
Yeah.
We need safeguards in place, ethical safeguards, structural safeguards, policy safeguards. And this is where the Muslims should be now speaking, because soon we're going to end up not knowing what a human being is, bro. I mean, some of these founders, or promoters of transhumanism, they probably don't care if the human beings were wiped out. Or they'll be like, I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Let me think. Do you see my point? So it's a God complex, bro. A lot of these people, they think they can transcend human limitations because they don't like being human, because they have this thing of wanting this sense of absolute freedom. And the irony about chasing absolute freedom, because liberalism was a precursor to the AI and transhumanism age. Don't think liberalism was this kind of benign force. This was the precursor. You needed liberalism to be internalized on an ideological and individual level in order to have all of this mess anyway. Because what is liberalism saying? Fundamentally, it's saying the primacy is on the individual. There's no real obligation between the individual and society, right? As Mallory Friedman, the feminist philosopher, she says, individualism, which is like the premise of liberalism, according to many philosophers, is the view of the self as an abstract entity devoid from social obligations and attachments. And also that you have the idea of, you also have things like utilitarianism, the hedonistic principle, but also the idea of freedom. Like freedom is everything, and the chase of absolute freedom. So then it encourages human beings to chase this false notion or this false goal, unattainable goal of absolute freedom. Now that attainable goal of absolute freedom now, it has come into the individualistic age, AI age, and now the transhumanism age, because they want absolute freedom to shed the limitations of what it means to be human by amalgamating or combining themselves with technology to transcend the limitations, to have this unattainable goal of absolute freedom. Because really, bro, as Martin Ling said, the thinker, he said that this chase for absolute freedom is really their desire for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because absolute freedom is a key feature of divinity. Only Allah is absolutely free. He's al-Ghani, the free of all need. He's as-Samad, the absolutely independent. So what they're doing, they're trying to make themselves into God, bro.
This is very interesting.
But that's the whole point. You know what? I had a big argument with a family member about Elon Musk. Because sometimes, I'm not saying I always trust my intuitions, but as you get older, your intuitions count a lot. And this was like years ago when I saw Elon Musk was doing this Neuralink stuff. It was good to save human beings and make them walk. I get that, but I said, this guy is a shaitan. Watch what's gonna happen. And it came true anyway. And it's gonna continue. And you have to be very careful, because don't treat people who are famous and materially successful as angels. They have an ideological frame. And if they don't have the right worldview, bro, they're gonna use this stuff for the worst kind of outcomes. And one of them include trying to chase this absolute freedom. We want to become like gods. A lot of this really is fundamentally based on the key ayah of the Quran, bro. And Allah says, Have you not seen the one who takes his desires as his own Lord? It's simple as that. These guys want absolute freedom. Wallahi, they're never going to get it, because a contingent thing can never be a necessary being. The contingent thing can never be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Only Allah is Allah. And He is Al-Ghani, the free of all need. He is As-Samad, the absolutely independent. He is absolutely free. But they're chasing that. They want to become gods, bro. And they're going to destroy themselves in the process.
Bro, you know, that point you made about absolute freedom is so profound, because it's almost the transhumanist movement. A really dark side of it is they want to transcend death as well.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
That's the ultimate type of freedom from death.
Yes.
Right? And subhanAllah, it reminds me, one of the ways Shaitan came to Adam, and he said, eat from this tree so that I give you eternal life.
He just rehashed shaitanic games, bro.
It's the same shaitani message.
Yeah, it's the same game Shaitan's been playing, and we're not learning. And as, we get older and we have more experience and we see reality in the world, how it's unraveling before our eyes, it just humbles us, bro. It just shows to us how powerful the Quran is. And the Quran can simplify the most complicated, narratives out there. And fundamentally on this issue is that they just want to worship themselves.
Yeah.
They want to be autodeists, like, the Greek word afto, me, I'm a deity. Yeah? They just want to do self-worship, bro. And fundamentally, it all goes back to Tawheed. If you really worship God, you know that you're just a slave of the divine. You're at His service. You adore Him. You love Him. You worship Him. You want to submit to Him. You wouldn't end up in this mess. And Sheikh Tim Winters, Abdul Hakim Murad made a very beautiful point. I shared platform with him with methodology. I'm their sensei, which means mentor. Yeah, a great bunch of brothers and sisters. So we had this kind of dinner, and I gave a talk, and then Sheikh Abdul Hakim Murad gave a talk. It was actually really powerful. He said, one powerful dawah now that we can do, and he mentioned this. He was like, is a negative dawah, meaning we just put our hands up saying, it wasn't us. The Muslims did not create nuclear weapons. The Muslims did not create the transhumanism age. The Muslims didn't basically create these kind of attention economy or cognitive drain economy, whatever the case may be. It wasn't us. We didn't create this kind of postmodernism that wants to create a flat social hierarchy. There's no social hierarchies anymore. They want to flatten the whole of our societies. And we know that social hierarchies are necessary for human flourishing and civilizational flourishing. It wasn't us. That's one thing we can say, bro. That it wasn't the Islamic worldview.
Yeah.
This was not godliness. And we could just put our hands up. And that's a very powerful thing to say, actually. Yeah. Like, if we were in power, before the nuclear age, would Muslims have invented nuclear weapons? No way, bro. Bro, our Hanafi jurists were discussing on the ethical viability of the catapults, bro. Yeah, the catapults, yeah. And you got these kind of godless people who, bro, you know what used to affect me a lot as a child, by the way, yeah? Is this notion of nuclear weapons. Bro, wallahi, bro, uqsum billah, I believe it is Allah's loving mercy that we're still intact and alive. Do you know how many nuclear weapons are on this planet? It's enough to like mess up this planet like 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 times over, yeah? And everyone's mad. Right, a lot of these old people in power, you think they're gonna die soon? They could just easily press a button or do this, that, and the other. And the very fact that we're still intact and alive, bro, this is an infinite mercy, bro. I'm surprised human beings. Well, what kind of like? Sometimes you want to say that we've just failed ourselves, haven't we, bro? We're able to create weapons that can wipe us out many, many times over. I mean, that notion itself, it actually makes me feel sick. And I would say clearly, this doesn't mean now should Muslims not have nuclear weapons, because they're deterrent now. That's different. It's a different utility now. Fine. In state warfare, whatever the case may be, if we had nuclear weapons, great. Yeah, because no one's going to use them because it's called MAD, mutually assured destruction. So it's act like a deterrent. But if we were in power during the kind of nuclear race, or when they were discovering nuclear weapons, as the global dominant ideology or worldview, this would never have happened, bro. Because we know, I think it's in Abu Dawood, in the Bab, in the chapter of jihad, and it's you cannot punish with fire. One could even argue that means no planes with bombs, and stuff like that. So this is not us. Yeah, I'm so, there's a very scary hadith. I need to check the authenticity, where it's one of the signs of the day of judgment, before the day of judgment, bro, that a bird will keep on flying, will have nowhere to perch because it's always going to be fire.
SubhanAllah.
Yeah, that freaks me out, bro. Nuclear war, man, that freaks me out. And that's why, you know what, just always do tawbah, bro. Do istighfar at least 100 times a day. Astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh. Even if sometimes you fake it to make it. Keep on doing istighfar. It prevents calamity, and also it prepares you for death, bro. And then, anything can happen. Tomorrow morning we could wake up, bro, and half of London's gone because there's been a nuclear attack. God knows, Allah knows. But anyway, so yeah, these transhumanists, I would not trust them as much as I can throw them, because it's ethically, worldview wise, no way. They have the wrong drive and intention. They just want to be like God, man. And they will never achieve it, because absolute freedom is an aspect of divinity, and they will never be divine. So, and we need to teach them, they need to be humbled somehow, and they need to know who they are as contingent beings. And no matter what technology they use, as Allah says, no matter how high you are in the towers, death is going to reach you, my friend. Yeah, it is the most certain thing that's going to engulf you is death and your own limitations. And this is why the scholars, bro, and this is an important point to raise, actually. Good thing I had the chocolate, huh?
Yeah, you did.
So,
some more.
Yeah.
Got any more?
No, I'm good. So, what I'm saying is, that's why the scholars really focused on the inner sciences. You have the likes of Ibn Taymiyyah, Al-Ghazali, for example, in his Ihya, he writes many volumes, and one volume includes about kibr, arrogance, and ujub, self-aggrandizement. And the way he writes to basically uses Quranic verses to like deconstruct you in order to reconstruct you, to deal with your nafs, with your ego, because the greatest diseases of the heart are like kibr, arrogance, thinking that you're better than others and rejecting the truth. Ujub, self-aggrandizement, self-amazement, that you think you are the creator of the means, you're not just the means. Also, riya, ostentation, showing off, and hasad, blameworthy jealousy, that you're jealous of someone, then you want that blessing to be removed from them. They would focus on these things and give antidotes from the Quran and the prophetic teachings and from general principles to make sure that your heart is purified, because no one's going to be safe on the day of judgment. As Allah says, unless you come to Allah with qalbin salim, with a sound heart. And also, the only place in the Quran that Allah swears around 11 times consecutively for one topic, and that topic is the one who purifies their self.
Shams, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the only time that Allah makes 11 oaths, and 3 of those oaths are by Himself.
SubhanAllah.
And there's no other place in the Quran Allah makes 11 oaths consecutively just for one topic. So it shows how important the heart is. And these people don't have the right state of heart, bro. It's ego, is want to worship themselves, worship a false notion on what it means to be human, or to, outlive or outgrow their own human limitations that have been placed by the divine. And it's just chasing a mirage, bro. And it's going to destroy them and potentially us. And that's why Muslims, people who submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have wholesome, loving submission to Allah. We have a big responsibility about what we're doing, bro. What are we doing? Let's be honest. We're just sitting on the sidelines saying, yeah, let me download that app. Let me do this. Let me do that. Let me use it for my, social media posts, or let me use it for my work. And, I'm engaging with it as a tool in order to get more likes, shares, and money to monetize. You see it. But they're not really thinking, well, we have an ethical responsibility. Look, let me give you a hypothetical scenario. Yeah? Imagine in 10 years, papers come out that conclusively prove that the use of shorts and TikTok and the use of AI negatively affected our kind of moral intuitions and our cognitive abilities to the degree that it was extremely blameworthy and say even potentially haram. Or won't we be like regretful to even like not even step back and just pause and think, okay, where is this heading? But we're not doing that. We just think it's a tool, bro, isn't it? Just like the knife analogy I gave you. I think it's neutral and benign, but it's not. We have a huge responsibility. And now we're starting to know that these shorts and reels and this way of being online actually is negatively affecting our youth, making them dumber, making them not be able to read or be insightful or whatever the case may be. Then yes, we're putting content on there, but aren't we also responsible for that at the same time? We should be taking people away from it. And that's why like Sabur's what's his course? Was it
Zombie scrolling. Yeah.
Zombiescrolling.com, right?
So, yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
so it's helping you move away from doomsday scrolling or zombie scrolling. And we may have to now argue from an Islamic ethical perspective, is the mafasid, the harms, greater than the benefits?
Yeah.
So, and I'm starting to think now the harms are greater.
Yeah.
If that's the case, now we have a moral duty to pivot.
Okay.
My view is we should create mechanisms online that actually get people to not use it anymore, bro.
Okay, so a question relating to this.
Yes.
And this will probably further solidify your view right now. Our experience collectively, together, individually, through Sapience, through Lighthouse. Let's be honest, bro. A lot of young brothers and sisters with doubts. And their questions are crazy, as we've been experiencing even the other night. Yeah, the questions are crazy. I'm not laughing because it's funny. It's just
Well, you laugh or cry, bro.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah, of course it is.
So and obviously they're coming across these doubts or these questions that are forming into doubts in their mind on social media. I would say 99% of the time. They're not reading a classical book and coming up with this doubt. It's on social media, a video. They're obviously coming across it through, in most cases, Islamic content on social media. There's a problem there, bro. This quote unquote good content we're putting out, the Islamic content, is resulting in some case, at least some cases, with young Muslims with doubts. Maybe because it's the format of the content, it's short, they get a little snippet, and then that triggers them without getting context. How do we solve this problem, bro? Because it's translating into people with young Muslims with doubts and confusion that they're picking up from Muslim social media.
Yeah, so I don't know, bro, but my intuitions tell me that we need to have more people who are addressing those doubts in a very clear, decisive way, saturate the market as best as possible. But the best one to do is just have an ethical policy for your children and for people around you that do not go online to consume Islamic content. Just don't go online, read books. It's simple as that. Just don't use it. But it's number one advice of the Prophet ﷺ when it comes to the Dajjal, for example. You could make an analogy from this. Don't think that you're going to be able to deal with the shubuhat and everything's going to be fine. No, you know the Dajjal's coming. You flee, you run. Now, you may think it's disanalogous, but it's not. It's still a source of doubt. Dajjal literally means liar, right? You know, doubts are like lies, isn't it? The wolf in sheep's clothing. Shubuhat, destructive doubts, shubha, tushbihu, it resembles something that it's not. Even Ibn Taymiyyah said the reason people take shubuhat seriously is because it's falsehood with a tinge of truth. So the point is, flee, man. Just don't engage in it and revive relationships. Bro, we're having a generation now of people who lack emotional intelligence. Like, do you know how easy it is for you to shine as a really good leader now? Like, if you build your children to have good emotional intelligence and articulation, and they're smart and they read books and they're not really attached to online, they could really lead the community. Not because maybe they're great, obviously may Allah make them great, but it's because everyone now has basically digressed so much on emotional intelligence, on understanding of deen, of intellectual insights, of being able to read, of attention, of using the cognitive faculties in an effective way because of the online world. So what I would say is just get them not to engage with it, bro.
Because I'm pretty sure some of our young brothers and sisters who are ending up with these doubts are probably also turning to language, large language learning models, GPT, etc.
Of course they are, yeah.
To seek answers, and they're obviously, in the cases anecdotally at least that we come across, it's not helping in that way. So it is a difficult one, isn't it, bro?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the answers on this, but I would say by default, do not let your children use it as
social media specifically.
Yeah, the whole thing, it's a waste of time, bro. Because all they're doing really is all you're doing is giving them your attention, which is your data about who you are. You're not really changing the world per se. It's just noise. We know it's noise because we pick up the mess as part of Sapience and Lighthouse Mentoring Service. Many of the people have gone online and seen the great reels and discussions, but because the algorithm is designed to give you every side of every story, if you don't have the cognitive apparatus to navigate that space, it's the more it repeats on you, it's going to affect you in some way. Do you see the point? So we just need to be a little bit more careful.
But here's a conundrum, bro. Here's the sort of circle here. We're using the same platform to speak to people.
Yeah, we are. Well, that's why I'm not saying we have the answers, but at least we could use the platform to say, don't take this platform that seriously, or start reading, or be connected to scholars, or go and start developing your cognitive skills, your communication skills, your eloquence, your articulation, your knowledge of the deen, and be a little bit more serious. Yeah, you can't be zombie scrolling and think you have an understanding of the Islamic tradition, bro. Like, people do that with psychology now. People go to reels. I get them sent to me sometimes, a psychological insight. Now, what I use it with, and hopefully people should have this maturity as well, is like, oh, that's an interesting thing. Let me see if that's true. Get a book, look at some peer-reviewed journals, understand exactly what's going on. So it's just like a quick little, it's like an ad for what may be profound. Yeah, but you need to do that investigation. But a lot of people don't do that. Just stop at the reel. Like, I've heard people say, I saw this reel the other day and they said this, so it must be true, for example. Yeah, or I heard someone who has credentials say this, that, and the other about, I don't know, some kind of psychology or narcissism, and that's why it affects you. And you could see even in our community, brothers or even particularly sisters have been using the word narcissist a lot. Or he's a narc. Yeah. Do you know, like, statistically, the percentage of the world, I think narcissists are like less than 1% or something. Yeah. But the way it's been promoted online, that 50% of all men are narcissists, which is statistically impossible. Yeah. So we have to understand this from a psychological perspective. Don't rely on the fact that you think you're intellectual and mature. I'm sorry to say, you're a social creature, and Allah designed us that way, that we're going to be affected because of our environment. And we know this from a social psychological perspective. And we know this, bro, from the Quran and the Hadith. You're going to be upon the religion of your friends. You're going to be raised with those who you love. If you go to the blacksmith, you're going to get burnt, a smell of blacksmith. If you go to the perfume smeller, you're going to smell of perfume, and so on and so forth. Even in the Quran, when the people of Jahannam say, woe to me, if only I didn't take so-and-so as my friend. So your environment shapes you. If you're with 5 smart people, you'll be the 6. If you're with 5 dumb people, you'll be the 6. If you're with 5 righteous, you'll be the 6, and so on and so forth. The online world is no different. And studies have shown as well, bro, that just by scrolling over time, it would shape your moral positions and your political positions without you realizing.
The damage that already has taken place on a very subtle level, and we haven't even realized it, right? The social media age has come and gone almost. So it's come and done its max. And we still haven't figured out how it's shaped us and transformed us and manipulated us, etc. But now we have another element or layer of deception on its way. Generally speaking, obviously, there's some benefits, as you mentioned already, so with this whole AI thing. So let me pose it to you like this. Imagine our scholars are watching this video or this podcast. Paint for us or paint for them like an elevator pitch. What are the potential dangers that are coming? Why do they have to pay attention to this? And what do they need to give us?
It's a beautiful question, bro. It's a very beautiful question. Very sincere question. So, it's a very good question. I would say to them, they have to do shura with subject matter experts on this field, whether they're Muslim or non-Muslim, and look at the probability of the positives and the negatives of occurring, and then outweigh them. If you don't do that, I would say it's on your neck, and we may be held accountable, because I consider it now. Obviously, I'm not a scholar, but I'm considering this as a fard kifaya, a collective duty now. And if we're not doing it, if some of the scholarly class are not dealing with this right now, by virtue of what I've just mentioned, then it could be on their neck. And we all could be sinful, or they could be all sinful. And that's a big thing, bro. So they have to now take this seriously because of the trajectory where things are going, whether it's transhumanism, whether it's AI, whether it's outsourcing our cognition, whether it's the role of the algorithms and affecting our political, moral dispositions and ideas and values and so on and so forth. We need some Islamic criteria in place. And this is more important than finance, bro. Like, we have all these scholarly discussions on Bitcoin and this, that, and the other. This is it. This is something that our youth are using all the time. It's not a benign tool. It's not neutral. It comes with its own philosophy and its own morality and it shapes our cognition and our way of being now. We need to know the probabilities based on the subject matter experts, what the trajectories are. And I would even say, irrespective of what conclusion you come to, if you're not addressing this in some way now, it could be, I don't know, what are you going to say to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Like, what are you going to say? I give you a hypothetical scenario, bro. And I mentioned this about the internet years ago. I said, look, the internet, if I said to you, bro, every single person in the world is going to have access to a free library. As someone who's Islamically orientated, godly, yeah, what would be your strategy?
Everyone's going to have access to a free library.
In their own home, yeah?
What would be their strategy?
What would be our strategy? Like as someone who's Allah-centric, yeah? We want to please Allah. We want to worship Allah, serve Allah. So imagine every single human being has access to their own private library that is free and easily accessible. They don't even have to make much effort to download, to pick up a book, read a book, whatever the case may be.
So it's all fast.
They have almost an infinite library.
Okay.
Right? What would be your strategy?
You need to give them a guidebook or a rule book. Don't go to this section. Avoid these topics.
Or fill it with Islamic books.
Yeah.
And find ways that they will be attracted to those Islamic books, correct? The internet was exactly that. Everyone's got an infinite library at home.
SubhanAllah, it's true.
Yeah, that's the point.
And AI is just
and we did nothing. We did not much about it. We took a long time to actually deal with this phenomenon. Yeah. Now, look at the AI age and where it comes to the attention economy in terms of the algorithm, and now outsourcing our cognition. So, if I were to say to you that if everyone is going to have someone in their house, yeah. Every human being will have someone in the house free, yeah, that would basically tell them what to think and how to think and even how to frame reality, yeah. And they will be used as a tool to think for them. What would be your strategy?
Get that thing out of the house.
Thank you very much, bro.
Throw it out, man.
Isn't it the same thing?
Yeah.
Wallahi, bro, that's why we're so stuck sometimes on things that are not as a key priority. This could damage the next generation of Muslims, bro. Then in the next 5 to 10 years, like Allah knows what's going to happen, bro. What's going to happen? That's why we need strategies in place. That's why we need ulama. And when it comes to this moral legal reasoning, when it comes to unprecedented realities like AI didn't exist in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So it's you have to do the hard work of deriving the rulings and principles from the Quran and the Sunnah and applying it into this modern reality. The point is, when they do that, it's a probability game. They have to assess based on the data, and that's why it could shift over time. The kind of results or the fatwa, if you like, from the ulama may change over time based on the upgraded understanding of reality. But they have to start now. What is the probability here that it would lead to this harm? And what type of harm is this? Yeah, cognitive, psychological, ethical, worldview, etc. And if they can establish that it's a strong probability, they have to act. They have to say something. It's on their neck, bro. It's on their neck. And if they don't, then we need to make noise and we need to speak to the scholars and encourage them. And obviously we respect and love our scholars. And we have to respect them to the degree that we go to them. We can't wait for them to come to us. Yeah, they've got 1,000 things that they're dealing with. So we need to go to them and say, look, there's some serious issues going on. So brothers and sisters, just show them this clip or show them this video for them to be awakened to it. And it's not their job necessarily all the time to chase these issues. It's our job to have a good relationship with them and respect them and love them, because they're the inheritors of the prophets, if you like. And we need to say to them, Yalla, let's go. We need answers now. Ya mashayikh, our beloved mashayikh, this is the probability. Here are the subject matter experts. This is what they're saying. Give us an answer, because it's going to affect our cognition, our morality, our framing, understanding of the worldview, even understanding what it means to be human, bro. Bro, wallahi, I believe this, yeah? In maybe around 10 years, maybe less, there's going to be brothers asking mashayikh for fatwa, can I have intercourse with my AI robot that is fully conscious? would it be zina? Because they don't have accountability if you follow the Razian perspective on this. But it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it must be a duck, right? It looks conscious, acts conscious, and must be conscious. So I'm going to program obedience to it. Can I have a relationship with this thing, and can I engage in some form of zina? And would it be zina? Maybe it's not zina, because if it's not human from a design perspective and it doesn't have accountability, then it will be basically, sorry to say for the audience, like a form of masturbation.
Well, that's happening already. People can say there's a whole phenomenon already with these apps being developed, AI apps, narrow intelligence apps based on the same models. We're not even at, the advanced super intelligence yet, but there's apps that are being developed to have relationships. AI wife and AI girlfriend, etc.
We had this Japanese lady who married her AI, and it reminds me of this film that, don't watch the film, it's got some haram bits in it. Yeah?
You mentioned this.
I mentioned
before,
like 15 or something, 20 years ago or something. And it's called Her. The guy falls in love with the operating system. And this is all about worldview, bro.
Yeah.
He gets confused because they make love, inverted commas, right? And whoever the operating system says, don't worry, we're both fundamentally made of the same stuff, just electrons whizzing around.
Yeah.
That's physicalist ontology.
Yeah.
Worldview matters here, bro. Yeah. Do you see the point? So there's some serious issues that we need to be engaging with immediately. I think it could be even a little bit too late, bro.
Yeah,
we have to engage with it right now. We have to, I'm going to write a letter. Thank you, but this has encouraged me to write a formal letter, and maybe get other mashayikh that I know to co-sign it and send it privately to big ulama and saying, look, I don't have the answers, but here are the potential problems. We have a fard kifaya, collective duty, that we need to answer certain questions, because if the probability towards certain mafasid, harms, are strong enough, that we have to act, and we have to act now and give solutions.
And just to emphasize, because there's another sort of contention, if you like. Some people, you're not an AI expert. Right? What they mean by that is you're not a programmer or a developer, right?
Yeah.
So you shouldn't be talking about this stuff. Why should we take you seriously? But the point is that the AI phenomena is not only understood through the programming or developing aspect of it. That's those guys, frankly speaking, bro, many of them probably don't have a clue when it comes to the social implications of this technology, how it's going to impact people socially, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. They have no idea. They just program. They're doing their thing, right? So if you want to learn about how it works, then go to those guys.
Of course.
But the impact of it, real world,
it's irrelevant. Like, for example, do I know anything about pyrotechnics?
Yeah.
Like how to
no, of course not.
Fireworks.
No.
So does that mean I should just blindly play with fireworks now?
Exactly. Or encourage people to play with
encourage. No, of course not. Because I just because I'm not a subject matter expert doesn't mean now I should wholeheartedly just adopt it and use it. I might get burnt and destroyed in the process. So I don't think that's a very powerful argument as well. And plus, what does someone who knows how to write an algorithm, why does that automatically mean that they could have social, epistemological, and social moral positions on certain things?
Of course, it makes.
And to be honest, some of these guys are probably like, with all due respect, spent 25 years in the mother's basement, and they probably don't have much emotional intelligence anyway. I know that's a bit of a stereotype, but a lot of coders are like that. They're very binary.
Eccentric, binary.
Yeah, eccentric. I'm not going to get my morality or worldview decisions from these people at the end of the day. And it's not even related. And it's a false argument from authority. It's misplaced, actually.
Yeah.
It's like basically saying, I don't know, was like, oh, you're not a butcher. Yeah, you're not a butcher. So why would you say this meat is bad for you? He's not a dietitian. He's not a dietitian. He's just a butcher. He's a butcher.
Yeah.
So it's a misplaced argument from authority. Do you see my point? We got work to do, bro. Yeah. We got a lot of things to actually try and figure out, and it starts with taking leadership. So it's good what Islam 21C are thinking about doing, which is creating a policy on AI. When we'll use AI, when we'll never use AI, and also publicly show the prompts. These are the kind of prompts we use for certain things. And that would be a powerful way of dealing with things, yeah? And don't get me wrong, look, I've used AI. Like, it makes it easier to find references, especially when it comes to Arabic references. But, if you got like all the text, or you want to find the reference, you already have the argument. Instead of you going through like 1,000 books or something, you'll find it for you straight away. Yeah. but you need to check it, and you need to go to the original and double check, which I've done. Yeah,
Yeah.
I,
Bro,
I, 'cause
maybe-
I got this bunch of unpublished essays that I had to check line by line because it gets it wrong sometimes. By the way,
Yeah, of course it does.
So to using it as a tool, as a navigation tool, reference finding tool, when you double check it and triple check it, no problem. But you know, it gets dangerous, bro, because then your ability to think. Actually, I did this once. Maybe it was a couple of months ago. I was overusing AI to basically almost develop ideas or whatever the case may be, and I was like, oh my god, I temporarily couldn't write anymore. Couldn't even think. Yeah, it's actually really bad.
But this is the problem.
It's terrible, and this is someone who's completed a PhD.
Of course,
bro.
that's
Who's got a
exactly
couple
the
of
point.
postgrads. I'm not saying it to blow my trumpet. I'm saying, if it would affect me, it could affect anyone,
Of
right?
course it can.
So it's a dangerous thing, bro. Very dangerous. Yeah. And you know, remember, people have committed suicide, bro. That 14-year-old kid, I think he was 14. It was even advised to commit suicide. One fell in love with its kind of AI machine, AI avatar, God knows what, and fell in love or committed suicide. You're gonna have these problems. They're gonna increase, and that's why we have a massive responsibility. And a lot of it is just to revive relationships, man. Because Bruce Lee made something very powerful, which it wasn't his statement. It came from like the Chinese tradition, but it's very powerful. It's like phenomenological, existential. To be is to be related. You are your relationships, and you are revealed through your relationships. And we see this, the Sahaba, when they were the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were one way, and with the family they were another way of being, and they addressed this concern to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, this is normal. So you are revealed throughout your relationships. Like, what is a personality on a desert island, bro? What's compassion on a desert island? There's no one there. It's just you. You have to relate to something to reveal who you are. And your greatest relationship is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you find yourself, or you discover yourself through relating with Allah. Because Allah says, if you remember me, I'll remember you. Do not be like those who forgot Allah and Allah made them forget themselves. So who we are is contingent on us being slaves and adorers and lovers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and relating to Him in that way. Now the reason I'm saying this is, if you're going to relate to non-human entities, then it's going to reveal
You're not going to be human anymore.
That's my point. To be is to be related. So and you are your relationships. So if your main relationships 7 hours a day, Generation Z, bro, 10 hours a day screen time. So if you have 10 hours a day screen time and you're relating to a non-human entity 10 hours a day, how is that going to affect who you become?
Yeah. And imagine the generation that grows up with that from like age 2, 3.
I think anyone who gives their child a phone now under the age of 14, I would even argue, and under the age of 25, because your brain
doesn't stop.
Doesn't stop developing until that age or something, especially for men. But let's say 14. If you give your child your phone under the age of 14, knowing now what I know and what you've just discovered, it's a massive faux pas in your parenting. And don't just be social animals just because everyone else is doing it. You just have to take leadership. And the funny thing is, Western governments are now making policy on social media. Anyone under the age of 16, no social media. Because they know what's happening. They've seen the data. They've accumulated the data, and they've acted too late, to be honest. When it comes to self-esteem, your understanding of beauty, understanding of your sense of self, depression, anxiety, it's hit the roof because of social media.
And ultimately it destroys the system, because these people are not functioning within that capitalist model, because they're not cognitively able to anymore. The technology is destroying them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So obviously I'm not surprised that they're raising flags about it now.
Yeah, of course.
But okay, so here's the last question. I guess we could wrap up on this. So you remove it, people watching this, they switch off from, or minimize their time on social media, minimize the time with AI models. Let's be honest, bro. The world's young people are lost. They don't know what to replace it with. We struggle, bro.
Yeah, so
what do you replace it with?
I adopt Sheikh Fahad's position on this. And Sheikh Fahad is more of an expert. He's finishing his PhD in a couple of months, man, and make it successful in the International Islamic University of Malaysia, which I think is one of the top 3 Islamic universities in the world. And he's got an amazing PhD on Quranic beauty and natural beauty as antidotes to AI and the modern age. The only way to deal with this stuff, bro, is just to re-engage in nature. And if you look at a lot of studies concerning AI and the algorithm and even, AI systems, they reinforce what we call individualism in a sense of atomism and arrogance. And the antidote to arrogance is beauty. And Sheikh Fahad relates the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where if someone has an atom's weight of kibr, they won't go to paradise, like a mustard seed's weight of kibr. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam defines kibr as a rejection of truth and thinking you're better than others. And the algorithm and the individualistic age and AI reinforces that, yeah? Especially GPT, there was a study that the usage of this actually reinforces that thinking. It gives you a delusional state of thinking, yeah, that you're always right or whatever the case may be, because the algorithm is designed to actually reinforce your.
Yeah. Can I give you a quick example of it reinforcing that you're always right? I did a little experiment with it. Yeah, I said to her, look, think of a number, I'm thinking of a number. I want you to guess what number it is. And the game I played was, I said, okay, whatever number it would say, I would say, oh my God, that's my number. How did you know? So I did that once, did that twice, did it 10 times. I said, how is this happening? It kept denying it could be anything. Number one, beyond the material physicalist paradigm, right? No, there's there could probably chance this, that. Did it about 20, 25 times, whereas beyond the chance is very minimum. It still would just keep saying, no, there's this possibility, hold on, this is not right. This, it wouldn't entertain the possibility of any other potential explanation that was beyond the sort of immediate physical one. But secondly, at no point did they say to me, you may be lying. Regardless, it just acknowledged that I was telling the truth.
Wow.
Affirmed me, right? So I thought it was very interesting, but based on your saying, but anyway, carry on, bro.
Yeah, so the individualistic world, atomistic world, reinforcing the ego and your self-delusions and so on and so forth. And that is basically almost a projection, it's a manifestation of arrogance or ego. And that same hadith, as you know, when the Sahabi says, I like nice clothes, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, well, that's fine, because Allah is beautiful and He loves beauty. There's a link between the arrogance and beauty here, because it's in the same hadith. And what is a manifestation of Allah's beauty, bro? The natural world.
SubhanAllah.
Yeah. And the natural world, observing it, is an antidote to arrogance, which is a result of the AI and algorithmic world. And arrogance is rejecting the truth and thinking you're better than others. And what's interesting about studies, secular studies on nature, bro, when you observe natural beauty, your awe increases. When your awe increases, do you know what they say? They say you become more humble and you have increased cognitive faculties.
Yeah.
Humility is an antidote to thinking you're better than others, which is a form of arrogance, as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. And increased cognition means you're less likely to reject the truth, which is a form of arrogance, as per the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's statement. So what I would say is that we need to get our youth, bro, camping, going back into the wild, literally trekking, looking at the stars. And I experienced this myself when years ago I was camping with the family, and it was like towards the end of the summer in North Wales, and we're praying Fajr, and it's very dark in the summer, Fajr time. I stepped out after Fajr, bro, and I just looked up. I wasn't even conscious of it. I think I just looked up. Wallahi, bro, I saw layers and layers, an ocean of stars. I choked. One of the rare moments, as you know, living in modernity, a city boy, although I've been to Greece before and this and the other, but just after Salah, when I looked, I just choked. I was in so much awe, and it did something to me. We need to keep on having those experiences, bro. And that's why even if buying your children a pet, or even if you can't go out, just looking at nature documentaries. I know that sounds, it's not great, but it's still something, yeah. Reading, going out there in the world, exploring, trekking, just observing. As I mentioned previously about Malik Badri's book, Contemplation as Psychospiritual Study, just contemplate on the natural world. There's a reason why there's only about 150 to around 400 legal verses in the Quran and over 1,000 verses pertaining to nature. That's not haphazard. Yeah. And so reflect on nature, ponder, just being amongst nature like even being amongst trees, because trees, read the book The Hidden Life of Trees. They're like a conscious organism, bro. They're alive. They have altruism. They would sacrifice their own nutrients for the dying member of a tree to make sure. Yeah, bro. Wallahi, I usually ask people, are you a beach person or a tree person?
Forest person.
Yeah, forest person, sorry. And I'm a forest person because the beach is a bit cold, right? It's stony and sand and whatever, but the forest is an organism. It's conscious. It's alive. Remember the hadith, the tree cried, right, to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And trees communicate. This is a tree scientist wrote this book, The Hidden Life of Trees. Yeah, read it, bro. It's a phenomenal book. If an animal is biting the leaves of the same species of tree, do you know what that tree does? It sends a gas signal to the rest of the trees, and what they do, they create this bitter juice in the leaves, so the animals can't eat it.
Wow.
They have altruism. They're interconnected. They even know which tree belongs to their own species to help it more. It's they communicate. Yeah, it's absolutely something else. So even knowing that and just being amongst nature would have an impact on you. Like when I spoke to Sheikh Abdul Hakim Murad, he told me about that modernity has affected the Adamic spirit and the fitra, basically. And modernity includes AI and the algorithm. And he said the main solution is to go into nature. Yeah. He also said that reciting poetry. He said this is what the Sahaba used to do as well. And there's something about...
I was just going to mention that to you.
Wallahi.
I don't read poetry, yeah? But the other day, I found this book of poetry, just started reading it. But something happened in my mind. I was seeing things that were being said in the poem.
Wow.
And you can, when you're reading
imagery,
poetry,
yeah.
it just, the imagery comes. And I was like, it activated a part of my mind that probably hadn't been activated in a very long time.
Yeah, of course. Read poetry.
It's very stimulating.
One would argue by virtue of that, just recite Quran, do tadabbur of the Quran. That's an antidote to modernity. As Allah says, do they not ponder over the Quran or the locks on their hearts? So you can mirror the meaning. The more pondering you do over the Quran, the more your heart becomes unlocked to receive His guidance and mercy. So there are solutions, but we just have to force it. And it's hard. It's one of the most terrifying ages to be a parent, bro. Terrifying.
Yeah.
Like the screen is like it's an addiction. It's like morphine. You're dealing with heroin addicts.
Take kids off the
take them to nature, explore nature. I remember I spent a month in I think it was Spain, amongst nature, bro. And I still think I have the spreadsheet because I used to record everything I did during the day. Like I probably could work from like 7 in the morning to 9 at night, yeah. And the productivity levels hit the roof. And I said, why is this the case? Nature, but I was amongst nature, man. It just really made me more focused. It increased my cognitive abilities, my productivity. We need to engage with nature much more. Because everything is so synthetic now. And we weren't designed for this, bro. It doesn't mean we don't want material progress, but we use it as a tool to facilitate our flourishing, spiritual and worldly flourishing, not just worldly, yeah? And that's why when you go to certain countries that are like, constructed, or cities, you feel it. It's almost like, I can't engage with this. This is like, not meant for me. I can't be here permanently. It's going to affect my soul. So an antidote to that is to go into nature, whether it's sand dunes, whether it's rivers, whether it's forests, whether it's the sea, whether it's snorkeling, whether it's just, even just touching nature, yeah? Mountain climbing, cliff climbing, God knows what it is. Yeah? Just do something that is natural, yeah? And if you don't have any of that, then try and really see it online, yeah? And this is so important. Like, especially when it comes to couples, don't zombie scroll. Just put your phones away, touch each other. Sorry to say, you're both physical, real, natural objects, use that as a form of expression. That will ground you as well. And it would awaken you. And, just you spend that quality time to move your phones away. And this also affects our communication, our listening, our connection. I've mentioned this before. There's a book by Kate Murphy called You're Not Listening. What you're missing and why it matters, or why it matters and what you're missing. It's a phenomenal book, and studies have shown that even if we're communicating, like we're having a dinner and there's a phone on the table, you're not using the phone, it would affect your connection, your communication. So just hide it. Just when you're with family, just hide it. Put it in a drawer. It's not important. Put it on do not disturb. Put it away. Do not use it. And just engage with people and just revive those natural relationships. Go into nature. That is the antidote, bro. I don't think there's any other antidote. So, and that is beauty. So Quranic beauty, as Fahad says, engaging with the Quran, tadabbur, recitation, and also natural beauty, which is a manifestation of Allah's beautiful names and attributes. You focus on those two, inshallah, will be a strong antidote to modernity, to AI, to the algorithm age, to the age that wants to suck your cognition away, and you want to outsource your cognitive faculties. If we focus on that, I think the Muslim community is going to rise above this. But it needs collective effort, and it needs podcasts like these, narratives, books, shouting, screaming, advising. Otherwise, if it continues for another 5 to 10 years, bro, it could be game over.
SubhanAllah, bro. Jazakallah khair. May Allah bless you for
No,
covering this stuff. We're going to do obviously more
absolutely
podcasts and related topics, inshallah, as well. Anything else you want to share before we sort of wrap up today, bro?
Yeah, the only thing I would advise is just, especially as parents and as family members, and we're all connected to family, even if we don't have children, even if we're not married, just create this kind of communitarian approach that we all have duties towards each other. Don't adopt this individualistic mindset that is just about me, primacy as an individual. We're not liberals like that. We're Muslim, and we're like one body. We're a community, and we need to revive that. And that means reviving it from a social and ethical perspective, reminding each other, you know what? Forget this online nonsense. It's all noise anyway. You don't remember yesterday's reel that was supposed to inspire you. You probably don't even remember who it was. It's irrelevant. It's noise, fluff. Go out in nature, reflect on the Quran, reflect on natural beauty, make that as part of a key point at least once a week. And it's free. You don't have to pay for it. It's free. Do it regularly, and you will see over time it will change you, it will ground you, it will change your family, and it would improve your relationships as well. And it would also be a barrier and an antidote to the effects of the modern age. So just do that. We have no choice but to do that now.
Absolutely. Jazakallah khair, bro. May Allah bless you.
You
mentioned
too,
two things just before we go. Sapiens Institute, Sapiens Academy is a brilliant platform for people to come and do some serious learning.
So Sheikh Fahd, for example, is going to have an in-depth module just on what I just spoke about.
Yep.
So it's like the Quranic beauty and natural beauty as an antidote to modernity and AI and everything is going to be based on his PhD. So that itself, even just enrolling for that itself is worth it.
Yes.
And obviously we go through things like worldviews, we go through many of the things that we spoke about today as well. Proofs of God's existence, the rational arguments, the spiritual arguments, why Allah deserves worship. It's it's probably the most comprehensive curriculum that is put together in English language. And there are live sessions, and if you miss the live sessions, they're recorded anyway and uploaded.
Anyway,
and you go through the quizzes and the MCQs, and inshallah after a year you'll have a very, very robust curriculum that you have gone through, that you're able to go out there in the world and actually share Islam.
Absolutely. Inshallah. So we'll link that in the description.
academy.sapiensinstitute.org.
academy.sapiensinstitute.org. We'll put the link there as well, inshallah. Jazakallah khair, bro. May Allah bless you, man.
You too. Jazakallah for the opportunity.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Salam.